the streets of Dhaka are eerily quiet. The usual cacophony of bustling markets, honking rickshaws, and chattering crowds has been replaced by an uneasy silence, broken only by the distant hum of military vehicles. The once vibrant capital of Bangladesh now feels like a city under siege. Something unprecedented has just occurred, shaking the very foundation of the nation. This is a story of political upheaval, of a country teetering on the edge of chaos, and the uncertain road ahead. For years, Bangladesh has been a nation marked by rapid development and economic growth, yet plagued by political instability. The leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been both celebrated and criticized. She has been in power for 15 years, winning her fifth term in a controversial election just 7 months ago. But beneath the surface of progress, discontent was brewing. The spark that ignited the current crisis began innocuously enough. In June 2024, student groups took to the streets, demanding the abolition of a controversial quota system in government jobs. This system reserved a significant percentage of jobs for certain groups, leaving many qualified candidates frustrated and unemployed. The protests quickly gained momentum, drawing support from a broad cross-section of society. What started as peaceful demonstrations soon turned violent. Clashes between protesters and security forces became increasingly common. By mid-July, the situation had escalated dramatically, with over 300 people reported dead, including students, civilians, and police officers. The government's response was harsh, with curfews imposed and internet access restricted in a bid to quell the unrest. As the violence intensified, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina faced mounting pressure from both within the country and the international community. On August 5, 2024, in a dramatic turn of events, she resigned and fled to India, marking the abrupt end of her long tenure in power. The announcement sent shockwaves through the nation. Celebrations erupted in the streets of Dhaka, with jubilant crowds dancing and waving flags, a stark contrast to the previous weeks of violence. In the wake of Hasina's departure, Bangladesh's army, led by General Waqar Zaman, stepped in to fill the power vacuum. In a televised address, General Zaman announced the formation of an interim government, stating, "The country has suffered a lot, the economy has been hit, many people have been killed, it is time to stop the violence." However, his assurances did little to calm the fears of many, who worried about the implications of military rule. The international community has watched the unfolding crisis with growing concern. The United Nations has called for an immediate cessation of violence and the protection of human rights. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, stated, "I am deeply worried that there will be further loss of life and wider destruction. I appeal urgently to the political leadership and to the security forces to abide by their obligations to protect the right to life, and the freedom of peaceful assembly and expression." The human cost of the crisis has been staggering. Over 300 people have lost their lives, with many more injured or arbitrarily detained. Among the dead are students, children, and police officers. The violence has not only claimed lives but also disrupted the daily lives of countless citizens. Curfews and internet restrictions have added to the sense of isolation and fear. The road ahead for Bangladesh is fraught with challenges. The formation of an interim government, the potential for continued violence, and the task of rebuilding trust in democratic institutions are just a few of the hurdles. However, this crisis also presents an opportunity for profound change. If managed carefully, it could lead to a more inclusive and representative political system. The role of the military in the transition process is crucial. While some fear the imposition of long-term military rule, others see the army's involvement as a necessary step to restore order. General Zaman's commitment to dialogue with student leaders and opposition parties will be a critical test of his intentions. The international community will be watching closely to ensure that the transition to civilian rule is swift and transparent. Bangladesh's crisis is not occurring in isolation. The international community has a vested interest in the stability of the region. Neighboring countries, particularly India, are closely monitoring the situation, given its potential impact on regional security. The broader implications for South Asia cannot be ignored, as instability in one country can have ripple effects across borders. The political instability has also taken a toll on Bangladesh's economy. The country has been one of the fastest-growing economies in South Asia, with significant contributions from the garment industry, remittances, and agriculture. However, the ongoing violence and uncertainty have disrupted business activities, leading to economic losses. Investors are wary, and many businesses have paused their operations due to safety concerns and logistical challenges. The garment industry, which is a cornerstone of Bangladesh's economy, has been particularly hard hit. Factories have faced closures, supply chains have been disrupted, and international buyers are reconsidering their orders due to the unstable environment. The economic impact is not limited to businesses. Ordinary citizens are feeling the pinch as prices for essential goods rise and job opportunities dwindle. The UN and various human rights organizations have raised alarms over the reported human rights abuses during the protests. Arbitrary arrests, use of excessive force by security personnel, and restrictions on freedom of speech and assembly are some of the major concerns. The international community has called for accountability and transparency in dealing with the protesters and addressing their grievances. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has emphasized the need for the Bangladeshi government to uphold its obligations under international human rights law. He has called for the immediate release of those arbitrarily detained and for full internet access to be restored to facilitate communication and transparency. Social media has played a crucial role in the protests and the subsequent crackdown. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have been used by protesters to organize, communicate, and share their experiences with the world. Videos and photos of the protests and the government's response have gone viral, drawing international attention and solidarity. However, the government has attempted to control the narrative by restricting internet access and censoring social media. These actions have been criticized as attempts to suppress dissent and prevent the free flow of information. Despite these efforts, tech-savvy protesters have found ways to circumvent restrictions, using VPNs and other tools to stay connected and keep the world informed. For a peaceful resolution to the crisis, dialogue between the interim government, student leaders, and opposition parties is essential. The willingness of all parties to come to the table and negotiate in good faith will determine the future course of the nation. The international community, including the UN and neighboring countries, can play a supportive role by facilitating dialogue and offering mediation if needed. A critical aspect of the transition process will be the organization of free and fair elections. The interim government's primary responsibility should be to create an environment conducive to holding elections without fear or manipulation. This will involve ensuring the independence of the Election Commission, guaranteeing the safety of voters, and allowing international observers to monitor the process. Rebuilding trust in democratic institutions will be a long and challenging process. The interim government must take concrete steps to demonstrate its commitment to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. This includes holding accountable those responsible for human rights violations during the protests, providing redress for victims, and implementing institutional reforms to prevent future abuses. Transparency and accountability will be key to rebuilding public confidence. Civil society organizations, CSOs, in Bangladesh have historically played a crucial role in advocating for human rights, social justice, and democratic governance. In the current crisis, CSOs can act as mediators, facilitators of dialogue, and watchdogs to ensure that the interim government adheres to its commitments. They can also provide support to victims of violence and those who have been arbitrarily detained. A free and independent media is essential for a functioning democracy. During the crisis, journalists have faced significant risks, including harassment, arrest, and violence. Ensuring the safety and freedom of the press will be critical for holding the interim government accountable and providing accurate information to the public. Reforms to protect media freedom should include the repeal of restrictive laws, protection for journalists, and support for independent media outlets. International organizations and press freedom groups can assist by providing training, resources, and advocacy to strengthen media resilience in Bangladesh. The international community has a significant role to play in supporting Bangladesh during this transition. Diplomatic pressure, economic incentives, and technical assistance can help to promote democratic governance and human rights. International organizations such as the UN, the Commonwealth, and regional bodies like SAARC can offer mediation and support for electoral processes. Neighboring countries, particularly India, have a vested interest in ensuring stability in Bangladesh. India can play a constructive role by encouraging dialogue, offering support for economic recovery, and providing a safe haven for refugees if necessary. Other countries, including the United States and members of the European Union, can leverage their influence to support democratic reforms and human rights protections. The violence and instability have created significant humanitarian needs in Bangladesh. Displacement, injuries, and economic disruptions have left many people in urgent need of assistance. International humanitarian organizations can provide critical support, including medical care, food aid, and shelter for those affected by the crisis. Coordinating the humanitarian response will require collaboration between the government, international organizations, and local CSOs. Ensuring that aid reaches those in need and is distributed fairly will be essential for alleviating the suffering caused by the crisis. Despite the challenges, there is hope for a brighter future for Bangladesh. The resilience and determination of its people, particularly the youth, offer a strong foundation for positive change. By embracing democratic principles, protecting human rights, and fostering inclusive development, Bangladesh can emerge from this crisis stronger and more united. The vision for the future must be one of peace, justice, and prosperity for all. It will require the collective effort of the government, civil society, and the international community to turn this vision into reality. The journey ahead will be difficult, but with perseverance and solidarity, Bangladesh can overcome its current challenges and build a better future for its people. The situation in Bangladesh is complex and rapidly evolving, with deep implications for its future. The fall of a long-standing prime minister, the rise of military involvement, and the cries of a populace demanding change are all part of this unfolding narrative. As Bangladesh stands at this critical juncture, the choices made now will echo for generations. But what do you think? Will the interim government be able to restore peace and lead the country towards a more democratic future? How should the international community respond to support Bangladesh during this crisis? We'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives. Please share your comments below and let's discuss how Bangladesh can navigate these turbulent times. Your voice matters in this global conversation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis of current events around the world.